Went from condos to Pop's house. On calls, now bus routes.
All right, what's up, N2S family? So we got Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj just recently reacted to Don Lemon, right? And I'm going to get into that, but I just want to point this out. Right now, we're in a very, very crazy time in this world. We have people on the right, which is Republicans, getting into it on a daily basis with people on the left who are Democrats. You have a lot of name calling, people throwing things out there like, oh, this person should go to jail, and that side over there, they need to go to jail. You have protesting. You just have things going on that I don't believe we ever seen this consistent, right? We've always had things happen in this country, in the world, period. But the consistency of the rhetoric going on between Democrats and Republicans is at an all-time high. You have media personalities getting into it with rappers getting into it with political figures, people who are politicians getting into it, with everyday people on Twitter and things like that. Presidents getting into it with everybody. We're just in that time and place right now in this world, right? So we get something new every day. And today we have Nicki Minaj responding to Don Lemon after the situation that happened at the Minnesota church where the protesters were present, right? And for the people who haven't seen my video on that topic yet, you could watch it on my channel where I'm getting into more detail on, how that situation started and everything that happened with it, right? But Nicki didn't like Don Lemon's approach with how he handled that situation and actually being there and reporting on it, basically looking like he was taking a protester side, right? Well, we know Don Lemon is a Democrat, so what's how you think you're going to take, right? But Nicki didn't like it. And Nicki basically expressed how she didn't like it. She sent out a tweet. And I want to read the tweet really quick. So let's get to the tweet. So Nicki Minaj said, Don sucking lemon is disgusting. How dare you? I want that thug in jail. He would never do that to any other religion. Lock him up. Well, Nicki definitely didn't like that. He was in a church reporting, speaking to the protesters, somewhat seeming like he was taking their side. She didn't like it at all, right? And I get it. Nicki's very expressive, but I wanna just respond to that. I want to respond to exactly what Nicki said and everything, right? So I understand what she was trying to do. I really do. Nicki was reacting to Don Lemon being there, reporting, and in some ways inserting himself into what was happening, right? And I get the frustrations behind that. I get the emotion behind that. I really do. But if I'm being honest, and I'm always going to be fair, Nicki missed the mark with how she handled this one. She missed the mark. And let me be clear about something. The only position I'm always going to stand firm on, no matter the situation, is my position with God. Everything else I can look at from different angles. So from that standpoint, I got to call it how I see it. Nicki, she was wrong. She was wrong with how she came at Don Lemon, period. She said some things that wasn't right. If you're going to speak on faith, if you're going to, center Christianity and say you're standing up for it, then you have to walk that line too. You don't get to throw out messages like this and ignore the responsibility that comes with it. You know, it's perfectly fine to say that Don Lemon was wrong for being there or wrong for how he moved, but calling him out his name, disrespecting him, and basically crucifying him online, that's not it. You know, it's not Christ-like. And somebody around her should have told her to delete the tweet immediately. I'm just saying, you know. Now, with that being said, here's where grace comes in. You know, here's where I give Nicki grace. I don't think Nicki is fully where she need to be yet when it comes to her faith. And that's not an insult. That's just reality, man. You know, spiritual growth is a process, and she clearly still has a long way to go, you know, but I can see that Nicki's trying. I can see that she's fighting for what she believes in, defending the Christian faith. And because of that, I'm willing to extend, you know, grace when it comes to Nicki. You know, it's just that what she has to understand, though, is that you can't handle situations the same way you did while, you know, living in sin. You know, once you say you're trying to live for Christ, you know, the approach has to change. The language has to change. You know, the heart posture has to change. You know, that's the separation that needs to happen. And, you know, what you have to show, Nicki, I get it. It's an adjustment, a real one. And it's not easy. I've done it and I'm still working on it, but it's not easy, you know. But if she's truly committed, you know, if she really wants to grow and walk this thing out the right way, she'll get there, you know. And I believe Nicki will get there. I can see Nicki getting there. Nicki, I can see she have a good heart, but she just have a lot to learn. You know, Nicki went from, you know, doing songs the way that she's done them, really living in the world, to, you know, out of nowhere, letting people know that she's a believer. I didn't even know Nicki was a believer. I didn't know that she was a Christian. I didn't know any of this. So now that you're representing Christ, you just have to do things differently. If Nicki never said that I'm a believer and I'm representing Christianity and that's who I see myself as, I don't think no one would have said anything about this tweet that Nicki put out at all. No one would have probably cared. Some people would have laughed. Some people would have, you know, said she was crazy, but they would have just moved on from it. But the reason why you got people talking about it is because now people are looking at it like, Nicki, aren't you a Christian? Oh, what are you doing putting out tweets that says Don again lemon is disgusting? You know, you better than that, Nicki. You're better than that. You know, I don't understand why you putting out tweets like that. What are you doing? You know, so but at the end of the day, nothing but love for Nicki, man. I seeing Nicki stand up for, you know, Christ and the Nigerians who are Christians in Nigeria who are being, you know, murdered and killed and just facing persecution in the worst ways we have ever seen it from what we were able to see online. Her standing up for Christianity and also going to sit with Charlie Kirk's wife and give her support, you know, for what she been through, losing her husband. I got nothing but love for Nicki seeing that, you know, like that was big. Nobody else was doing that. Nicki was. So nothing but love and respect. There's just still a lot of growth that's needed. That's it. And I believe Nicki gonna get there. One day we're gonna be seeing Nicki doing gospel, you know, music and everything. I'm telling you, it's coming. It's coming. You know, but you know, in 2 Timothy 2, it says that we must correct, right? But you just got to correct with love, kindness, you know, in a gentle way. And I believe that's what I'm doing right now. I don't think that I'm correcting in a negative way. But correction is needed, but it's all with love, you know. So shout out to Nicki, man, you know, and hey man, we're gonna keep this Christian walk going. I had to show 'em that I wasn't made.